Harlem on a Saturday night. When the highbrows get together, it's just too tight. They all gather and holler and what to do. Oh, Hannah Brown, way across town, keeps drinking her corn liquor and she brings them down. Just at the break of day, you could hear old Hannah say, I wanna be good.
Hello and welcome to Wednesday Winos. It's Hump Day and we're celebrating all things delicious from the Yarra Valley, and today we're going to be talking about beer again. I'm Rebecca, I'm from Kangaroo Ridge Retreat, and I'm here with
Hannah from Watts River Brewing.
So it's been a really great week and we're really excited about today's show at the moment. Hang on, I'll just change this so that it looks a little bit easier on everybody's eyes. And I wanted to just give a good shout out to Brad and Matt from Steelsgate Wines. Last week we had an excellent show with the Chantal Chardonnay and also their bubbles, their sparkling wine. It was delicious, so thank you. They're opening their restaurant this weekend, so check them out if you're interested. So Hannah, do you want to talk about a little bit who's coming to talk today?
Well, I'm really excited to have Emily Day, who is the founder and editor, and she might tell us a bit more about what she does, of the fantastic independent magazine Froth, which is all about independent beer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll bring her on. I'll bring her on.
Talk about who she is better than I can.
Magazine. Hi, Emily. You're on.
Hi. I believe I'm now live and connected to you lovely ladies.
Hi. Welcome to Wednesday Winos.
So thanks for joining us.
I'm excited. I feel like I'm hanging out with humans, which is something I haven't done in a while.
And is there anything you want to tell us about you and Froth that I missed in the intro?
Well, I'm Mrs. Froth, editor of Froth Magazine, a monthly free independent beer magazine. Here's one I prepared earlier. So this is our latest edition, which just came out yesterday. So it's called the Comeback Edition because, as Rebecca was just holding up, that was the quarantine edition, and when everything kind of closed down, and it was quite heartbreaking, and we took a month off from Froth and we weren't really sure when we were going to come back. So we took a month off in May and now we're back with the Comeback Edition and lots of great beer news and whatnot in there. So, and thanks for having me on today.
Yay, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. So we're starting with the APA today, I guess, and we're also drinking.
Now, we're a bit scared to say this, so today we're drinking Oude Gueze Boon, and I've definitely ruined that for anyone who speaks Dutch. It's I think probably my favourite beer, and when we were thinking about what to drink tonight, this was my choice. So gone away from the local Yarra Valley thing and just thought I'd introduce this beer to anyone who doesn't know it. It's a Belgian lambic, very sour, barrel aged, and anyone who's watched this knows I love some wood. So there's some wood in this beer, and yeah, really an inspiration. Things we like to play around with in Watts River Brewing are a lot of Belgian styles. So this is a really awesome, exciting style. It's spontaneous ferment, so we've done a bit of that at Watts River. So yeah, just a really inspiring style and something that on a special occasion I really love to drink. This one we've got is 2014-15, so I understand that they barrel age it and then blend it with some newer ones.
So are we starting with this one or we're starting with the APA?
No, I just was so excited about it, I couldn't stop talking about it. But the other beer we are tasting, which is our Watts River Special Batch Old School APA, which stands for American Pale Ale. So just a nice old-fashioned, where we sort of hark back to in Craft Beer Brewing with some American hops, Cascade and Amarillo. These ones are sourced from the US, so just a nice, approachable.
So cheers. Cheers. Welcome to the show, Emily. We'll start drinking.
Yes. Lovely.
So what?
And so Hannah, when you say old school, what era are you talking about there?
Well, that's a good question. Probably like I'm thinking, and I might just let Ben interject if I get this completely wrong, but I was thinking like old school, sort of the beginnings of the Australian craft scene, sort of harking to the American craft scene, which was very well established before we were. So it's 4.6%. So just a really sort of uncomplicated, happy little pale ale.
Lovely. Excellent.
What do you think? What are you tasting?
Well, I think it's delightful, first of all. I'm just enjoying the clarity in colour as though it was a diamond. There's so many hazy beers out at the moment, so it's kind of nice that a few breweries are making these old school kind of West Coast style beers, which I really enjoy. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the classic hop. So I really appreciate this one. I've been appreciating quite a few Watts River beers lately. I got excited and bought a whole slab and then put a couple of extra ones in there. So I have been enjoying your whole range. But this is the first time I've had this actually. Yeah, just really nice. As you said, just classic, straightforward beer. Really nice to enjoy, and you could definitely have a 6-pack. Well, maybe not a whole 6-pack, but, you know, a couple, and just really enjoy this with dinner or just having a lovely, relaxed afternoon.
Yeah, so we really like to go for sessionable, clean, just really well balanced, clean beers. So I think this knocks that nicely on the head and dry.
Yeah. Rebecca, please tell me if I'm yapping on too much. But
No,
that's what it's for.
Sorry, I was a little bit fangirling because, you know, when we moved out to Melbourne, it was pretty much, we moved back in 2012, but we moved to Sunshine, and I had to bring out this. I started.
Oh my God! Old school Froth. It's edition number 1. It's me with a glass of beer. Do you know how that cover came about? That was the most last minute thing to ever happen, because our original idea fell through. I can't actually remember what it was, but yeah, let's not even talk about that. But
Now I'm interested.
So another friend was hooked me up with the guy who did that. They were like, this guy's a great illustrator, you should talk to him. And so he came around. I'd never met him before. It was like the day before we went to print, and I'm like, I will name my firstborn after you if you can help us do a cover. This was like the first edition of this magazine I just started, and I'd promised everyone it was going to happen. And so he took a photo of me in my back shed, and I'm leaning on a hula hoop just to get the circle of the beer. So I had to go out and buy a hula hoop. And then he drew the beer in behind it, and I just thought it looked wonderful, and I spiritually feel happy sitting in a large pint. So even though when I see it I do cringe a bit because I feel like a bit of a goose, but a friend gave me a framed copy that's sitting on my wall. It makes me laugh just thinking of the crazy last minute rush to get that. And the illustrator Michael Elesich, who still draws our crafty comic for us, is an absolute gem. So I'm very impressed that you managed to pull it out after almost 5 years.
I just love it because I thought it really was a great launch to show a woman in the beer industry without it being sexualized, and because there's a lot of stereotypes in this industry. So I thought it was a really excellent launch. Yeah,
I think funnily enough, actually my first idea was to put a bearded man on the cover, because I'm like, what does a stereotypical, beer drinker look like? And then so we found our bearded male model, kind of hipster guy, flannel shirt, beard. And then he was an amateur model. And then just before I got him to do it, he turned pro. So suddenly he wanted to charge us $700. And I'm like, I don't have that. So I'm like, wait a minute, I can do it. And then I thought, well, I also kind of part of the point of the magazine is to, be breaking down those stereotypes, and a beer drinker can look like all of us. And maybe, obviously lots of lovely bearded men drink beer too, but just to kind of widen it and say we all enjoy this beverage. So let's, acknowledge that more women are getting into beer, and that's become so much more the case even in the last 4.5 years of doing Froth. It's just becoming way more usual to see heaps of women at beer festivals and at bars and being super knowledgeable and awesome. So I'm really enjoying that too.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely a better result than Mr. Professional Hipster.
I think we've definitely seen that image. I think I was definitely trying to play it safe, but maybe a bit boring as well.
I like it.
Thank you.
So what went into so how long were you planning on, tell us a story behind getting Froth from an idea to actually a free magazine? How long has it been? When did you make the decision?
Well, I made the decision about 2 months before I released the first edition, because I like to do things very quickly and unplanned. So I was actually a bit, I'd had a few beverages, and I thought it would be a good idea to start a free beer magazine, because I work in journalism and I've always worked in print journalism, and I just love the idea of having like a little, there's wonderful websites, obviously, like Crafty Pine and Brews News that are writing about beer, but I guess I wanted to have a curated monthly selection of beer news and whatnot, and also to have it free in a pub, so maybe someone who's not super into craft beer can walk in and grab it, and maybe help them get over those stereotype thoughts about, it's a bit wanky, it's not for me. So I wanted to kind of make it very accessible and not wanky. So you don't need to know special words or where hops come from or, all of the processes. You just kind of encourage people to just try a beer from a local brewery as opposed to, grabbing an Asahi or something. So, yeah.
I think it's great. Yeah, it covers that breadth from a comic to the recipe is something I look for every month.
Oh, awesome.
and of course your mum's column.
My mum's reviews, yeah. My mum cares about craft beer.
But the thing I worry about her is she's been doing it a while now, and I feel like she's got to know she's getting quite a sophisticated palate.
Do you know what's funny is that, so it was obviously started off as a joke. I think it was going to be a one-off, and then she just became absolutely unstoppable. So she just hands it to me every month. So, for instance, on Mother's Day, my parents came over and my dad was helping me with some gardening, and then afterwards I gave him a beer, and she just took it off him and started reviewing it. And she's holding it up to the light and trying to put the right color it is, and just standing there like, that was my beer. So she's had some pretty crazy stuff, and she and my dad travel a bit for his work, and they will go to breweries all around the world and review beers, and I'm quite jealous. And she's such a chatty person that brewers she'll just make friends with people, and they'll bring over a tasting paddle and sit there and watch her drink it. So it's very adorable, and I love it. And just to mention the recipes that you talked about, that's my mum's sister. So my auntie does our recipes. So it's kind of a bit of a family operation. But every month she makes a new recipe that involves beer. And it'll be like this month it's Easter cookies, and it might be prawns or steak or chocolate pudding. And she was not into beer until I started Froth. So it's kind of infected my whole family, but that's kind of fun.
That's excellent.
That's lovely. Shall we get into this one?
Yes, this is I've already poured mine. I haven't taken a sip.
Open.
Now
I still
it
got to
is.
take mine out of.
Yes, it's got the cork.
So Hannah, you said that these were in a secret stash in your house. How long have you been holding on to these?
I would think last Christmas. Is that right? Yeah. One of the things we do at Watts River is with some of our tips from the cellar door, the boys buy a Christmas stash of all the exciting beers that they love. So this was not this Christmas. Was it? No, the one before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably been in our cupboard for a year and a half.
Okay. Well, on the back of it, it does say that it can be stored for up to 20 years. So I hope you've got some more.
Yes.
Best before 2037.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
that's amazing.
yeah, it says it's aged for 1, 2, or 3 years in oak cask. The blend, a mild average, 18 months old. So I think we were also tossing up what to drink and perhaps playing around with blending, because I think blending's something that people aren't aware that some brewers do, a bit like winemakers. So that's what's happened with this. So 14, 15, if they've put a 2037, that must have been bottled, one presumes, in February 2017.
I thought it was on the 2014. It's on the neck.
Okay.
Is it?
So that's what the neck was.
So that says brewing season. So is that when it was brewed and then it sat in barrels for 1, 2, and 3 years, and then they blended those 3?
I'd say so, yeah.
I'm just really enjoying the aroma coming off this.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's floral and it's multi-layered. There's just so much going on. Do you have better words to describe it?
No, I'm really bad at describing science. It's a really bad place for me to be, but I get a lot of lemony.
Yeah. I have to admit, when I first had this beer, Hannah and Ben gave it to me, and I was like, it's quite different to what you would expect beer to taste like. Because I guess if you've grown up with I don't know, the Australian beers, the typical beers that exist in Australia or in the pub, that's not in the major cities. So you're going to end up with a very bitter one that has to be super cold. It's very cheap.
Yeah.
I don't want to name any.
So this is bottled with some yeast still in it. So it's in a little champagne glass, which is what we do with our bread beer, so that it can continue to be live, which helps with the age that it can survive in the bottle without oxidizing. It's 7%, which it doesn't taste it. I think it's just, for me, it's got such a depth of flavor and so much going on. And I remember when Simon and Becky first tasted it, and they were like, and I'm like, if you don't hate it now, and I say this about our bread as well, if you don't hate it now, come back to it and it will grow on you, because there's just so much going on. And I think if it's the first time you've drunk beer like this, it can be a real shock, and you sort of need to approach it more like wine.
And wine glass,
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people, I had the same problem when I first had a beer on the sour spectrum, which is you have a taste and then you recoil in horror because you're like, yeah, this is not what beer is supposed to taste like. Why does my mouth hurt? But so I think they say you have 3 sips, and by the third one, you've acclimatized to that new taste. So yeah, if you're trying something like a lambic or some kind of sour beer or tart beer for the first time, just have a few sips and you will start to love it, because at the start you'll find it appalling, and then you'll get to appreciate all those different layers of taste. And there's just so much going on and so much to learn about. And as you say, the beer will change its flavor in the bottle. So depending how long you store it for, I guess like wine. So that's super fascinating as well. We're not used to that with beer. a Carlton Draft is going to taste the same all the time. So to have a beer that can evolve, it's just so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really bright on the tongue, really lemony, kind of almost spritzy on the front of the tongue, and then at the back palate, it's kind of lingers and in a good way.
Yeah. And it's super crisp as well. It's just, I don't know, it tastes like a spring morning. You just want to go back and try it again. And it definitely does not taste 7%. It tastes so light,
quite
and
dangerous.
fresh.
It's quite dangerous.
Yeah.
You go, woo. Yeah. So
Yeah.
If you said this was 4%, I would believe you, because it just, as opposed to like a double IPA where it's really heavy and really kind of clings to your teeth and tongue, this is just dances off with its kind of spritzy littleness.
It's got that lightness of a mid strength in some ways from that brightness in the flavour.
Hannah, how do you actually, Ben might be able to answer this because I know he's in the background, but how do you actually avoid that syrup, not so syrupy or the thickness when you actually go into the higher alcohol content beers? Like for example,
I think it's,
how do you
he'll correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to have a stab at this. I think it's healthy yeast, like really good healthy yeast that yums up all those sugars and turns them into delicious alcohol to keep it dry. I think I got away with that one.
It does have such a lovely dry finish. And you just think of, you could pair this with the most delicious meal and in a really nice restaurant, and it just really uplift and really complement those flavors. And yeah, this is one of those beers that could really overturn people's feelings about beer, or give it to someone who says they hate beer and kind of make them think again.
Because I was going to say something similar. It's the style of beer that I would recommend to someone who says I hate beer, because I found at a lot of festivals, especially where we had our Brett beer on tasting, a lot of women, and I hate to stereotype because I know we're talking about that, but a lot of times a woman is coming along with her partner and says I hate beer.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times it's actually hops that they struggle with. And when I give them, I'm like, taste this Brett, it's so different. And this is the same with this one. You can't approach it like a beer. If you take a sip expecting what you think of as a beer, that's where people recoil. And that depth of flavour in something like this without that hops bitterness is I find it can turn a lot of people that think they hate beer around.
Yeah, if you were a fan of white wine or cider, your palate would be totally set up to enjoy it straight away.
100%.
Sorry, Rebecca.
No, I was going to ask. I'm finding the same thing. There's a divide between people who go for the hoppy style of beers, and it's a little bit like coriander, where people go, I like it, and then they actually start getting, I want more, and I want to have a higher hit of that particular flavour. But then there's the other side when going into more of the sour, more tart flavoured beers. So what's your Emily? What's your flavour preference? Do you have one, or even one?
I'm a fiend for a hoppy beer. I think that's how I fell in love with beer, was having one of those West Coast IPAs and just really feeling bowled over by those hop flavors. Although then again, that does contradict what actually happened, which is I fell in love with beer in Germany, which is more classic styles, like a Hefeweizen, which is more the yeast is giving it wonderful kind of banana-y and clovey flavors. But give me a big, bold IPA and I'm very overjoyed. So I came to sour beers and these kind of more complex Belgian beers a little bit later. But I'm, really enjoying the complexity of the flavour and also the history, looking into the history behind it. But even the smell of hops is just incredible. Like you can get a handful of hops and it'll just be, passion fruit or grapefruit or citrus or burnt rubber or, some of the coconut or berry. It's just an incredible kaleidoscope of flavors. And then you put in several different hops and there's any amount of combinations. It's just extremely joyous. So that's my jam.
Lovely. So I've got a call out to all the people that are watching at the moment on our stream at the moment. So if you have any questions for Emily or for Hannah about the APA or any of the beers that we're drinking tonight, write them in the comments below and then we'll answer them. So we'll just continue talking for the next couple of minutes and then add your questions to the feed if we get any. Hannah, do you have a question?
I was just going to shout out to a couple of comments, not questions, that we've got so far. So someone said they like our Watts River bottle, which is really nice. It's our little old-fashioned stubby little fella.
I'm a big fan of it as well. It feels like a real old school kind of stubby. I think I was chatting with a friend today and we were saying it's like the VB bottles used to be called a grenade. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because it just fits in your hand. And, sorry, continue.
No. And then there was another person, Rodriguez, who said he's just tried his first Watts River Blonde and he says it's delicious, which is very nice. Mm.
That's awesome. I have a question for Hannah. So I know that you guys have a bunch of barrels up against the wall in the Watts River Brewery. Do you have these kind of beers going on in there, or do you have beers slumbering away for a few years?
Yeah, so I think all of our barrels are full at the moment, and there's a whole range of different exciting fun things that the guys are playing with there. So some of them have Brett beer in there, and we've done a few spontaneous ferments, which one of them turned out really lemony and delicious. So there's a few of those in there. I might call for my brains trust. Is there anything else I should? Another thing we do is steal yeast from delicious beers we like, such as this one,
Nice.
and Orville, and inoculate with those yeast. Anything to add?
Handy to have a brewer in the background.
We're going to release one. There's one that we've got. We're going to release in collaboration with White Rabbit soon. So Rabbit and our barrels. Which did we do that last year as well for Good Beer Week, or? Yeah, so White Rabbit have a barrel program as well, and in fact they started their barrel program when Ben and Aaron were still with White Rabbit here in Healesville, and then when they moved they continued on the barrel program. So last year for Good Beer Week we did a collaboration with them and blended some of their barrels and some of ours, which was really interesting.
So we have a question. Sorry. We have a question from Jared. That he wants to know a little bit more about the other Bretts that you had planned. He's talking
about a Watts River Quint Spirit. Did we do that? Did we do maybe a one-off? I think we did throw. So on the quince question, we've brewed our Mr. Quincy. So that's something we do every year when quince season, which quinces come in at around May, and a local farm supplies us with some quinces. We've approached it a little bit differently this year and juiced all the quinces. Previous years we've actually poached them in the brewing liquid. So this time we've juiced them, hoping to take a little bit of the bitterness out. And in regards to the Brett, so we have our Brett Pale Ale, which is fermented in tank for usually around 6 months. We hope to cut that down a little bit because it costs us a lot of money to age it for 6 months, but we wait till we're happy with the flavour. And then in barrels we have a few Bretts on the go, so we taste them on occasion and either blend them with other beers or bring them out as a special batch. But in terms of Brett, we'll just keep going with one release roughly once a year when it's ready.
So I got another question. Can we come and visit the brewery now the restrictions are easing? Good question, Joel. We really...
Oh,
Joel.
Thanks for the question, Joel. So we have launched an online booking app which you can access through our webpage and through our Facebook page. So we are open for dine-in, our fabulous pizzas on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays. We're also opening this Monday, which is the Queen's birthday long weekend. And all our normal other hours we're open for takeaway only. You still can get takeaway when we're open for dining as well. So, yeah, we just ask that you book, and we've put in a lot of work this week in deep cleaning the venue and making sure we're across the 30 pages of guidelines for opening in the current restrictions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it goes well, and hopefully people enjoy a nice visit to the brewery. Eat their pizza under the shadow of our vats.
And I believe that you have acquired a still recently.
Yes, one of the
Is that up and running?
Yes, I believe so. Have you?
You've been making the hand sanitizer with that. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, long story short, we bought a bigger still that connects to the top of our brew kettle. So it only arrived a week or so ago, and we had to get a connection built because our brewery is a strange European sizing, and we had a metric still, so it sits on top of the keg on the kettle, but we haven't actually given it a run yet. But yes, we're using that to make sanitizer.
I was actually it's pretty cool because I don't think I've seen this sort of setup anywhere else, because you go to a distillery and they've got all their stills and everything in a separate room, but this one, all the kettles, and then you got this hat that pops out in the middle, and that's the still there. It's
okay.
Pretty cool that it's like a still setup.
Is it attached?
So
anyone dining at the brewery this weekend will see it on attached to the kettle. It's currently attached.
Yeah, quite a feature. Yeah. So like
exciting.
So like with most of our shows, well, all of our shows, actually we're at like show number 10. I think it's pretty scary that we've just done our 10th week in Wednesday Winos. Pretty cool, but with always every single one of them, we end the show with a highlight of our past week and something that you saw that was positive. So we end on a positive note. So Emily, in the last,
oh gosh, I forgot to prepare something.
We can start if you need some time.
Yeah,
you start first.
Yeah, Hannah, positive notes, positives.
Now, I really want to say, but I said it last week, that the children being back at school was a really big highlight. But I will say it's tinged with fear, but excitement at opening the cellar door again to dine-in visitors. So tinged with fear just because there's so much work to do before Friday and so much to get our head around with the 30-page. But we're passionate about making it the safest experience as well as the most relaxing way of getting out and having a meal. If that makes sense.
I thought of something.
Yeah.
So after however many, maybe 2 months of my hermit lifestyle, which, let's be honest, I did enjoy. I love wearing tracksuit pants, but it's been nice in the past week venturing out and having FaceTime, being in the same room with friends. So obviously still from a distance, but we popped over to Hannah and Ben's house the other day to pick up some beer for this tasting. Well, she was going to drop it off and I said, no, I need a road trip. I want to come to Healesville. And that was such a treat to see your beautiful house, and the fact that you have a river at the bottom of your backyard suddenly made all your beers make sense. I'm like, why do they keep talking about rivers on the labels? And even the label itself, I love that the back of the label, like the gap looks like a river. Like, that's so cool. And then
sorry, I've cut in. Have you noticed there's actually a hop kiln in the picture, and this is a hop kiln in Hillsville in like the 1890s.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's a beautiful town, and walking into your backyard and seeing Ben sitting by a pile of logs on fire with a river behind him, I was just like, this is amazing. I've not left my lounge room for weeks, and this is such a beautiful sight, and seeing you and your beautiful children. So having this disease be suppressed to some extent in Australia and being able to actually see our friends is very joyous, and yay.
Lovely.
And thanks for the visit. It was amazing.
Yeah. I was
That was lovely. I'm looking forward to visiting the venue.
I was 10 minutes behind you, but I saw your cupcakes. They were looking mix. So, you know.
Damn, I'm sorry I missed. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
next time.
Yeah, next time. But I think by the time we got there, it would have been like the threshold. We would have had to have done a swapsies when you left.
Too many humans in one space.
Yeah.
It's still awkward, isn't it? When you see friends and you're like, what did Dan Andrews say that we're allowed to hug? Like, what's the...
Yeah, I think the 1.5 meters. I feel like in news coverage of everyone getting back together again, that the 1.5 meters seems like it's kind of forgotten, but it's kind of awkward when you see your loved ones and you normally go in for the hug and you're like, hi.
It's very weird, and it's very against our human instincts. So, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to just exhibit normal human things towards each other. Yeah. You know, it feels kind of rude to just stand back and be like, hello. Like,
yeah.
And your highlight, Becky?
My highlight, I think it ties in very much to yours as well, because restrictions are easing. And as soon as they were easing, we got slammed with a lot of like inquiries and bookings and everything. I shouldn't say slammed. I think everybody was able to work through our systems and book. But actually a lot of what I really appreciated was that a lot of people were very understanding about that it was all of a sudden, and a lot of people, and they were very patient with us as we worked through the chaos that came about it, because not everybody was able to get their dates and were able to manage everything. So that politeness that we saw at the beginning is still there. So I'm like, that's actually a really lovely part of human nature or the culture that we see. And so I'll just celebrate that. Cheers to everyone, saying thank you hard, and trying to make everything as safe and as enjoyable as possible. So so it was really appreciated. So
well, thank you so much, Emily, for joining us.
Oh, thank you. This has been a great treat.
Yeah,
every week.
Yeah, every week.
Great to learn more
Maybe
about
in person. I don't know. We can
been
talk more about the pronunciation of words.
No,
bastardise it again.
In the
Bone. Oude Gueze Boon. I don't know. Sorry, I apologise.
Yeah.
We've
done our best.
Maybe we'll ask the brewers from Boon to come on and say it properly for us.
Yeah.
So
it's a great beer. We don't know how to pronounce it, but it's very nice.
Going to look a bit awkward in a second, but I wanted to actually show a little bit of what's happening for next week's episode, because we're continuing next week, and we're very excited to say that we're going to have Bird on a Wire. It's going to be a wine, because we go beer, wine every week on Wednesday Winos, and we'll have Carolyn, the winemaker from Bird on a Wire, presenting. Don't know which wine. She's yet to let us know. I'm really excited because she'll tell us what an exciting wine. It's sure to be delicious. And so that's next week. So thank you, Emily. It's been amazing.
Thank you for tuning in.
I had a very good fangirl moment.
Thank you so much. And
just stick on the line. Stick on the line, and we'll just finish up. And so good night, everybody. Thank you. Cheers. And
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Hang on.